I don't know if it was just me. Let's clap this thing. I don't know if it was just me as a kid, or if Nick is just retarded. He's just leaving the room now, so we can talk about him freely. Um, but I used to get hounded with times tables in the car. My old man, when he picked us up from school, he'd be like, "What's 3 times 8?" And you have to 24. And you have to like blurt it out as quickly as you could, and it was actually really beneficial, really useful because now it's a skill that I have. I can't just do the 2-digit ones. Like if you ask me 12 times 24, I'm just not gonna do it. This is something I never practiced. But single digits, even some single v 2-digit, and then I'm absolutely fascinated by those kids that are hyper autists that can do like 6 times 6, 6-digit times 6-digit equations, just bang, and then they're like 13,782,645, and you're like, what the fuck? Very, very impressive. And I mean, look, is it deductive capabilities or is it just high level pattern recognition? It's probably a bit of both because I don't think my computing power is any better because I can do 9 times 763. Like, it doesn't really make me smarter. It just makes I know the pattern. I know what's meant to be said at the end of it. But yeah, I got hounded with that when I was a kid. My old man used to say it all the time. He would make us read bus advertisements, and which you look back on it now and you're like, why would you make us read bus advertisements? It's full of gibberish. But it was just again, it was probably more the pattern recognition of this word means this and this word means this. And that's how that's spelt and that's what that looks like. So yeah, I don't know if that was just me. Maybe I'm not the only one. But certainly Nicholas was not involved in that group. But anyway, sometimes it scares me. Like my missus is not very good at her times tables, but she doesn't need to be because she's attractive. So, take that as you will. She says it. I'm just repeating the message. Don't fucking shoot the messenger. It's actually, I was talking to a mate of mine and he said that he knows a very well-known podcast host in Australia, and seems like a great kid. I've listened to a bunch of his interviews from a couple of mates of mine that have been on his show, and apparently, I don't know how much about this I can say, but apparently he lost a big proportion of his show contributions, we will say, because he had a take that people really didn't like and crucified him for. And it was something as simple as he thinks that traditional relationships should be traditional relationships. And I think that this gets bastardized so much because you're not a misogynist and a bigot and a patriarchal tyrant if you say that you want your woman to work less or not at all to provide an environment for your children, because that is the most important thing they could possibly be doing. I don't see a reality or a world where you could possibly justify the fact that taking care of other people's kids, cooking other people's food, cleaning other people's houses is better, more fulfilling, or warranted over that of your own. And I know everybody will say, oh, like we're going backwards in evolution because a lot of people, maybe there's a reason would they want to go back. Maybe there's a reason a lot of people want to go back to that system. You look at all of the measurable metrics and all of the statistics of where we are currently to where we were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where that was a lot more commonplace. And obviously there's a broader economic relationship to this as well, where it's becoming increasingly infeasible to have this happen for the average person. But I don't know why he was condemned and crucified for that, because he's not saying anything too outlandish. And I mean, of course, there are representations of tyrant fathers who, of the children of the partner, who force them into doing things that they don't want to do. Of course, that's a consideration to have. But I think if you were being truthful with yourself and you're being honest, and you are in a relationship and you do want to have kids and you do want to bring life into the world and you want to provide a good life and a good existence for that child, and if you had it your way, not the way that it is currently, but if you had it your way and you had a choice, I think most people would agree with that sentiment. I think most people would agree that the dad goes out and does the jobs that he needs to do to provide the food and the protection for the family. And then I think the mother would be more than satisfied staying at home, getting to see first steps, getting to see first words, and being able to be an integral part of their kid's life where they're being raised by the values of the individual who birthed that child, with the cultural norms and the psychological similarities. And you're basically molding young minds, right? When you have children, and when you put them in a place where there is strangers who they've never met before doing that for them, they're going to be subject to differences. Now, those differences may be good. Those differences might be appropriate. There are some situations where kids are going to daycares and they're in a better environment than they could have possibly been at home. It's not to discount all of that. But I think to get up in arms and get really riled up about the fact that saying that it would be better if the mother of the child did all of those things for their own child instead of everybody else's kids at daycares and childcare centers, I think that's completely ridiculous. It's just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to even listen to it. You can turn the fucking episode off if you want, but it's just my opinion. I don't think it's crazy that we're in this cancel culture ideology where as soon as somebody disagrees with you, you just have to get the pitchforks up and set the fucking town on fire because how dare you disagree with me? Like, I've been in some interesting waters recently for some social media posting that I've been doing. And I think it's hilarious because there are masses of individuals that sent me messages that were like, yeah, fuck yeah, I agree. And it doesn't really mean anything to me, to be completely honest, because the opposite doesn't mean anything to me either. If you're willing to take the praise, you have to be willing to take the criticism. And I only take criticism of those who I admire and those who have the things I want. And I tell you for fucking free, anonymous accounts on Instagram don't have what I want, and they are not worthy of admiration whatsoever. And so I think it's quite funny. Some guy messaged me, and I think he said, what did he say? He goes, small dick, full stop. That was it. That was his whole thing. I looked at his profile, and he's some fucking neckbeard loser with a ponytail, probably an avid Reddit user, and just overweight, gross looking thing, obviously deeply unsatisfied with his existence. I just sat there and I was like, wow, it's pretty sad actually. A, that you think that's appropriate, B, that you think that you're getting some sort of win by doing that, some sort of validation for doing that, where it's freely available for me to see a window into your existence. And social media is a place where you post highlights. No one posts their deep shit on social media most of the time. And so if that was this guy's highlights, my God, what a sad, strange little man. Fuck, Toy Story, such a good movie. Fuck, so good. I watched it the other night, probably about 2-3 weeks ago. Me and my missus are going through all the Pixar movies that we think are going to be appropriate for the little one coming. Because there's a lot of propagandized bullshit in kids' movies these days. It's actually quite sad because I remember growing up with very fond childhood memories of Nemo and Toy Story and Cars. Cars is such a phenomenal series. It's amazing. It teaches you life lessons, and it's got like things for the kids, things for the adults, and the way that they layer it in is beautiful. It's like The Simpsons. They got away with a lot of adult jokes that were neatly orchestrated within the tapestry of the scenes, and that the kids wouldn't notice because they're like, oh, they're yellow. But that the adults could come along for the ride because they obviously understood the context of the jokes. And it wasn't as in your face as Family Guy and South Park and whatever else. But yeah, that's been fun. There's something I'm really looking forward to be fair. I was talking to a guy yesterday, Callum. Got my chip in my windshield fucking repaired yesterday. And they were unbelievably easy to deal with. And Callum is the son of the owner of the whole franchise, and I'll tell the story. He was telling me yesterday. I just sat there talking to him for about 30, 40 minutes while they did my car, and he said, "Yeah, you know what's crazy? My old man owns this place, and he owns 70 locations, and he went to America on a holiday." Just serendipitously learnt or was shown how to repair windshield chips, and then came back to Australia 40 years later. He's got 70 stores, and they're doing a lot of revenue. He told me yesterday. I won't share it because it's not my information, but a lot, like a lot. 70 stores, multiply that by however much you think it is, and then probably add some. And he said to me something so fascinating. He said, since I've been working here, I've actually started to love my dad a bit more. And I've actually started to really respect him as an individual because I've dealt with a lot of problems and putting out fires and all the stuff that you would deal with managing a franchise. And then I can only imagine what that would be when you extrapolate that to 70 franchises all at once. And he's got kids, and he's got a wife, and he's got all these other things that he's doing. He goes, man, the respect for him just went whoop. And I was like, yeah, I can see why. I can see why. And he goes, then I reconciled the fact that when he was coming home angry or a little bit frustrated, and he was not giving himself enough distance between, dealing with absolute ridiculousness all day, every day, and then coming home and the house is a fucking mess and kids got trouble at school and whatever. Didn't give himself enough space, but to expect somebody to have the ability to do all the things he was doing and then also have the space to not like pass that on to the kids, like, fuck, you're basically anointing them as a saint at that point. Most people aren't fucking willing to go through that journey. Most people are only so capable, although very successful in their own rights, in their own capacities. But he goes, I now understand why he was a little bit cranky when we were kids, and the fact that he's not blaming him for it anymore. And I was like, wow, that's actually a really good take. And it's fucking pretty commendable for you to come to that assessment. But we were talking about kids, and he said, man, just you wait. Your fucking life will change completely. And similar thing to the critique of online dorks and neckbeards, that I only really try and take on the knowledge or the wisdom that's being delivered, the advice, from parents that I would like to emulate in some capacity. And I've got a couple of really good dads around me. I've got a couple of really good mums around me too, that I've been lucky enough to witness them in some small capacities and also in some larger capacities of their parenthood. And when they give me advice, I'm like, okay, cool. That's worth jotting down. That's worth taking into the memory banks. And Callum, this is a complete stranger yesterday, showed me that he has the capacity for that. And he said to me, he goes, man, it's awesome because you don't like concern yourself with whether you want to do something anymore. It's just you do it. And you just go to another level completely. Because it's not just you anymore. It's you plus them. And when they're young, their upbringing is going to be an extension of you, of your work, until they get to a certain age where they can become self-sufficient. And even then, when they're 16, 17, 18, they're still relying on you to take them places and relying on you to pay for things and what have you. Even in some instances where they're a lot older. I think about that all the time. It's like, when do I want my kids to move out? And obviously I'll cross that road when I get there, but it's looking pretty fucking bleak for anything under the age of 30 for kids to move out of home these days, let alone in 25 years when I'm going to be dealing with that conversation myself. That's going to be an interesting one. I don't think I'll want to move. I don't think I will want them to move out if they're gonna suffer and struggle and just not make ends meet and those sorts of things. But then you go into the wider breadth of conversation. I was listening to a podcast episode with Steve Harvey, and he said, "You guys know that I'm not leaving you anything, right?" And sorry, it wasn't Steve Harvey. It was the guy who was on with Steve Harvey. His name's Zaya Yonan. He's an Assyrian guy, and fascinating character. Fascinating character. I bought some of his cigars for preemptive celebration, a baby shower, and also title fight. But I bought some of his cigars. He's telling this phenomenal story. But he basically said, he goes, I'm not going to leave you guys anything because it can be an unbelievable burden on you to receive things that you believe that you haven't earned, and you will self-sabotage immediately. And you see that usually with generational wealth. 85% of the time it's gone in one generation, 99% of the time it's gone in two, and then if you're lucky to make it to the third, it's completely gone by the fourth. And there are a couple examples of different families, like the Medici, who are seventh or eighth generation currently. Obviously Rockefellers, and you've got other different families that have sequestered their wealth quite nicely. But he goes, yeah, I wouldn't want to burden my kids with that because they didn't go through the things that I wanted to go through. Even Mike Tyson, he goes, man, I can't imagine my children living the life that I went through. No way. He goes, I can't imagine anyone else going through that. It was fucking torture. It was an absolute nightmare. And even to me, to some degree, I can't imagine my kids going through the life that I went through when I was a young kid. No way. No way. And obviously you either want to protect them from that and try your best to shield them from that, but then you also can't. You can't put round corners on every table because then they're not going to learn anything. So this is the thing that I contemplate on a lot with raising kids and allowing them to trip and stumble and fall and do their own things and make their own mistakes, but then also being there when they do, I think is the best way to do it for me personally, the way that I'm articulating it now. Instead of setting up the perfect environment so they can do nothing but succeed and then have them just destroy it because they come from, ease. I've seen a lot of kids that have come from easy upbringings and their lives weren't all that difficult when they were growing up because their parents said, I love you, good night every night, and their family stayed together and their parents never got divorced and they didn't have deaths in the family or anything like that. And at school, they never had a rough time, and they kind of got to 18 and went out into the world and went, holy fuck. And that was their only form of resilience that they ever had to display. And by then, you've missed out on a lot of character building. And I don't think you can't come back from that sort of stuff, but the lessons, like, I look back on all the things that have happened in my history and I go, fuck, I'm so grateful for all that shit. Even today and the stuff that's going on day by day, week by week, it's like, fuck, I know that this is going to make me better, so I'm not going to avoid it. I'm going to look it straight in the face and just run through it. I think if you can get to that stage, or the stage where you just laugh. I was talking about this to somebody this morning when we were showering, and one of the boys was getting real mad and having a fucking fit. Some of them do that when they're younger, and they have very little emotional regulation. And so when you rile them up a bit too much and they get mad, and you think it's funny that they're mad, so you keep going. And I think that's just hilarious because we call it cope at the gym. There's obviously Zoomer language on TikTok and YouTube and whatever else. We just triple down when somebody's getting visibly really angry at it, because you need to learn to control that. And that's part of why martial arts are so important, is because it is emotional regulation under pressure, under fatigue, under all kinds of obstacles. And if you can't master that while you're with your mates talking shit, well, then you're not going to be able to master it when you're in the dying seconds of a match and you need to pull a rabbit out of the hat. So it's part of the routine that you just need to get with. And one of the boys, who's another one of the young guys, he said to me, he goes, yeah, you just can't take this shit seriously. And I'm like, yeah, you're getting it. You understand now. You got to laugh at it. You got to be like, this is fucking hilarious. Because otherwise you do take it too seriously and you do let it bother you and you do let it get to you. And that's the same thing that an opponent's going to do to you. It's just the way that it works. Cus D'Amato said that it's 75% mental, boxing. And I tend to agree with him that all combat sports are about 75% mental, because everybody's got similar attributes. Everybody's got similar strength conditioning protocols. Everybody's got similar techniques. Like, we're not using There's not people who have 3 arms in boxing that you're going to have to deal with and you've never seen before. It's crosses, jabs, hooks, uppercuts, body punches, and then footwork. I don't know, it's probably an oversimplification. But they're the base elements. In Jiu-Jitsu, there's guard, there's passing, there's wrestling, there's pinning, there's pin escapes. That's pretty much the bulk of it. That's the meat and potatoes. And then the spices are the shit. And if that's the case, then the differentiating factor between champions and those who aren't champions is mental. It has to be. It has to be the separating factor. Because there are people that win. There are people that win in spite of their obvious deficiencies physically. And you're like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Usually the biggest, strongest, and fastest, according to Darwin, fucking should win. And they don't sometimes, because the mental acuity is probably about 3/4 of the total of what makes a champion. But anyways, Zaya Yonan, fucking gangster. I really like this guy. I listened to both his episodes on the George Janko podcast. Never really gravitated towards that guy until the Steve Harvey episode, and then the Zaya one. And he's talking about he's a billionaire, and the way that he demonstrates it is very interesting. He doesn't like the word rich. He goes, I'm not a rich guy. He goes, I'm a successful guy. And some people will conflate those two terms and not understand the difference. But he goes, I don't like that because it has like a funny connotation to it. He goes, I like the word successful because it proves that I've overcome many obstacles in my life and I haven't ever taken no for an answer. And he's talking about this El Septimo cigar company. And he's at this hotel. And usually the floor is booked out for the Saudi royal family. I think it was maybe the Saudi royal family or the Qatari royal family. Is one of the two. And he rings the place and he says, I need this many rooms. And they go, oh, well, you can't have that because it's owned by the royal family. He goes, make the call. I'll pay whatever needs to be paid and I'll sort it out. And so anyway, he ends up getting the rooms. And it just so happened that the prince was there at the same time on the same floor. And they'd run into him in the elevator and he had these 2 cigars in his hand. And him and his wife had set a routine that on a Sunday night, they'd light a couple of cigars and just talk about the week and converse and what went well, what didn't go well, what did you overcome this week, what was these sorts of things. And it's a really nice sentiment, something I'm going to apply with my family. I've always missed those family dinners where you come to the table and share everything that went on during the week. Haven't had that in decades. And he's talking to this guy and he sees the cigars in his hand. He like signals to the help or whatever you want to call it, the guys, his entourage, these people that were doting on him. And they swap him out for 2 of these other ones. And he was like, what the fuck? Like, oh, I really wanted the ones that I had. And he goes, trust me, these are made for the royal family and only the royal family. Like these are the best. And he goes, okay. So he takes them up, go on the balcony of the hotel, starts smoking them with his wife. He goes, man, these are fucking fantastic. Wow, this is like a really nice flavor and it's got good body to it and the smell is beautiful and it's not too overpowering and all these things. And the wife said the same thing. She goes, this is the best I've ever had by far. And then there's a knock at the door. And the prince had given them 10 boxes of the 25s as a gift, as a gesture. And so they took the boxes home from the hotel. They smoked through all of them. And one night he comes out to his wife and there's a different label on the cigars. She looks at him and she goes, I don't really feel like it tonight. Every Sunday they do this, every Sunday, but they'd smoke through all the boxes. And he goes, what do you mean? This used to be your favorite, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, but it's not El Septimo. And he goes, all right, fuck. So he rings these guys and they go, oh, we can only provide for the royal family, so on and so forth. But if you come to the office, we might be able to sort something out. He looks up the office. It's in Geneva, and he's due to go to Paris tomorrow. So he gets on his plane, goes to Paris, and then says to the captain, he goes, we need to go to Geneva on the way home. And he goes, I can't do that. Like, we need to ring a number and then organize a spot for the plane and so on and so forth. And he goes, call an emergency landing over the Geneva airstrip and then we'll land. And he goes, I can't do that. Like, I'm going to lose my license. I'll get fined and I won't be able to fly again. And he goes, I will pay the fine. And I will also make sure that you don't lose your license because I'll let you fly for me forever. So begrudgingly he agrees and he's like, okay, fine, I'll do it. So they call it SOS. They land the plane just so he can go to the head office in Geneva. And he speaks to the guy that owns it. And he's like, I want to buy the company. And he's like, oh, okay. And then they deliberated and he ended up buying it. And they were at a dinner or something like that. It was a long business meeting. And he said, okay, but I've got to go home now. My plane's waiting. Take me to the office so we can go pick up some boxes and I'll take some boxes home. And he said, sir, the office is closed on Sunday. And he said, no. My office is always open because he just bought the company. And I'm sitting there listening to this story. And I'm like, fuck, what a gangster. What a madman. It's such a cool story. And then since he took over, he's opened it up to the public, and you can only get them sent to Europe. And then I was kind of bummed out about that because I'm listening to the story. I'm getting all intertwined with it. I'm getting excited. And I'm like, fuck, they must be pretty good. Maybe it's good marketing, or maybe it's just, it is what it is. And I've had some pretty good cigars. I'm not a big cigar guy. Usually celebratory moments. My best mate's birthday last year was probably the last time I had one. And I had bought, we're in this Cuban coffee place in Miami, and they had a humidor in the corner, and then they had the coffee roaster on the left-hand side, and then a cafe in the back. And they had this tres leches, or like 3 milks coffee, and my God, if you've never delighted yourself to the good graces of a tres leches coffee, please do so. It's like condensed milk and then a cappuccino, and then it's got like cream and shit on the top. Fuck, man. Unbelievable. I would have had like 6 of these things in 2 days. Easy. And it's that Cuban turbo coffee, like the shit it'll put hair on your balls. It's some good stuff. And so we're going to this cafe every day, and I talked to the owner, and she showed us the old Cuban lady, and she's probably in her 50s, and she's like showing us how the coffee's made and all that sort of stuff. And we said to them, it's like, oh, it's our last day. And they were like visibly upset. They were like really upset that we weren't coming back. And next time I go to Miami, I'm going straight there because it was unbelievable. And they said, oh, please, you must take a cigar. And I was like, no, you let me pay for it, please. Like, don't be ridiculous. I hate when, I don't hate it. I love the generosity, but I would never accept something like that. Of course I'm going to pay for it. I said, look, what's the best? Give me the best, and then give me the second best. I want to try both. And they were like, okay, it's this one and this one. This one limited to 500 pieces. This one limited to 1,000 pieces. This is the best. This is the second best. I was like, all right, cool. Give me both. Paid for it, ended up leaving, come home. And then it was my best mate's birthday, like a week after. I was like, oh, perfect. I've got a perfect reason for this. And originally it was because he was having a baby girl. It was meant to be in December, but she was born 1st of the 1st. And it's really cool because we absolutely hated each other's guts when we first met in year 7. But we've been best mates ever since. Once we realized that we're actually the same person, basically, and we could just drop the bullshit. More like it's kind of like the Spider-Man meme where you're pointing at each other and you think you're different, but you're not. You're the same. You just haven't recognized it yet. You pull down the veil and you're like, oh, you are me, I am you, blah, blah, blah. It is what it is. And since then, it's been, like 15 years? And it's cool because our firstborns are both going to be girls, and our firstborns are both going to be born in the same year as we are born in the same year. And that's really cool. Really cool. I hope he moves out to, he's talking about moving out to the mountains. So hopefully he moves out to the mountains. He can be a lot closer to where I am. Not having to drive to fucking Coogee every time I want to go see the cunt. But if you're not from Australia, Penrith to Coogee is probably the distance that it takes from you. It takes from I don't know, Spain to France. Nah, it's not that big. Probably east to west Ireland. I've been told you can drive across Ireland in a crazy short amount of time. I don't remember what it is specifically, but if you were to do that in New South Wales, you wouldn't have even exited New South Wales yet. Australia is so sparse. It's quite fascinating that in Europe you could just drive through 3 different countries before you've even left a state in Australia. It's quite fascinating. But yeah, so we ended up having this, and the Cuban ones are very good. The Cuban ones are very good. So I'm interested to find out whether Zaya's a very good marketer, or is like genuinely gives a fuck about his cigars, and they're actually really good. So I'm excited for that. Can't wait. Tristan Tate was talking about it beforehand. He's come out with a tequila because he's talking about whiskey, loves cigars. And he said, I would never come out with my own because I would be doing a disservice to the ones that I know are impeccable. And he's a big fan of Romeo and Julieta and Cohibas. Cohibas are good. I've had them before. I've got one. Might have it on Sunday. Might have the El Septimo. I don't know. Might have both. And he said the same thing with the whiskey distillery. It'd be years before he would be able to produce something. And even if it was years before he'd be able to produce something, he'd be going up against like the Johnny Walkers, and I don't know much about whiskey, but those sorts of brands that have been distilling for hundreds of years. And he goes, I wouldn't be doing it justice. I wouldn't be able to put my name and face to it. And you hear something like that, and you're like, wow, there's actually like a fair bit of integrity to that. And I said this to somebody the other day. He was an old online personal training client of mine that I used to train at the gym. There was a bunch of kids that I ended up taking under my wing. They were like 16, 17, probably even younger at the time, maybe 15, 16. And they saw me lifting like big heavy weights and would always ask me questions about it. And I just give them programs and shit and charge them fuck all. And he sent me a message. He goes, oh, like, I've got this opportunity for you. You've got like a content creation course we want to run, and we want you to like be the face of it. We'll do all the work. And I was like, nah, dude. Nah. Like, first of all, cold DMs is the fucking shittest way to outreach. The shittest way to outreach. I've never read a cold DM where I'm like, yes, sick. It always has to be like a referral from a friend or something like that. And if it's cold outreach, it's just, you're better off running ads. But honestly, you're better off running organic stuff to prove that you could do what you said you're going to do in the message. So there's some sort of validity, but all these kids, they post 3 photos on their Instagram, and one of them's in front of a fucking rented Lamborghini, and they're like, yeah, sick, I make $100,000 a week. And you're like, no, you don't, you fucking liar. And then you're sending cold outreach. You make $100,000 a week, you're not sending cold outreach DMs to fucking no one. It is the lowest percentage gain or ROI for your time. You really think that if you were making that kind of money, you would be spending your time on tasks that were so low ROI? You literally wouldn't have the time to be doing this. So it invalidates itself before. It's the Ouroboros. It's the snake eating the snake's tail. The head latched onto the same thing. And I just find it so funny. And because he was like a mate of mine, previously, I laid it out to him. I said, look, no one's going to do this that knows what they're talking about. A, because I wouldn't be putting my face to something that I didn't give a fuck about and actually genuinely built myself or used myself. It's just not how I roll. I wouldn't be putting my name and face to something that I didn't want to support, that would go against, I don't know if ethics and morals is really the right thing, but go against my intuition, like, especially if it's touted as some sort of get-rich-quick scheme. It's bullshit. It's just they're going to try and make as much money as possible. And, if it was really good and it was working, you would just run it yourself. The reason you message me is because you need me to basically do the marketing for you. And I'm not doing that. It's just not going to happen. And it's good to have that idea prefacing all of your business decisions or all of your life choices as well. Like, if you don't agree with something or somebody, the way that they organize their life, don't work with them. Pretty fucking simple. If you don't like the cut of their jib, No one's telling you that you have to put up with it just because, there's some sort of opportunity or some shit. You can find your own. You can make your own. You don't have to be a part of it. I left my job as a personal trainer for that very reason, and the reason I wanted to pursue jiu-jitsu full time, because they said that I said something to somebody or near somebody that was deemed offensive, and then they failed to tell me who it was or what I said, and basically tried to muzzle me. And I said, well, I'm not going to fucking do that. And I think it was a matter of a couple of weeks that I decided to get the fuck out of there. I was like, I can't be part of this. Can't support this with what I'm trying to do, and walk on eggshells and pretend to be somebody that I'm not, and try and look around corners to see who might be possibly offended from the things that I said. Fuck that. No way. Kind of self-policing is very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. And yeah, okay, maybe if it's malicious in its intent, you shouldn't be saying it, but I wasn't. I can guarantee you I fucking wasn't. It was probably a swear word. It was probably bitch, cunt, shit, fuck, or something like that. And they were like an old, it was a very old facility member base. And they probably didn't appreciate me saying fuck, but get over it. Get the fuck out of there, especially if they're infringing on what you think. Maybe it's not the right way to say it. If they're infringing on what you think is appropriate, because what you think is appropriate may not be appropriate for the situation, but if it's this is how I saw it. I saw it the way that if somebody genuinely had a problem, they would have mentioned it, or the management staff would have given me the opportunity to rectify the situation. And both of those things didn't happen. And so I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to risk having this happen again, because I don't know what I'm meant to say and not meant to say based on this possibly even fake individual complaint. And so I'm out. See yous. Bye. Gonna go do other things. And it worked out pretty fucking well. I think you should always back yourself no matter what. Decide you're going to do something and then just fucking do it until it works. I think that's the thing that stops most people. They just don't. They have a high expectation of, I'm going to start a YouTube channel and I'm going to be making 10K a month in 3 months. And I'm like, I'm fucking guarantee you're not. Not to rain on your parade, but it's a very unrealistic expectation. Don't fucking have it going in, because you're going to get very sad when 12 weeks comes around and you're not doing anything close to that. Set the goal for 5 to 10 years and then see what happens, and then be blissfully surprised the fact that you got where you thought you would get in 5 to 10 years in 3. It's much more realistic and it's much better, and you won't get bitter as a result of that. But anyway, I've got some posts. One of these is from a guy called Rumi, old mystic, and it was actually really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed this post. It said, a man once came to Rumi, and all these like old mystic guys, they never wrote books or never wanted to write down any information. They often have their conversations transcribed from different people and different interviews. And I mean, interview might not even be the right word, but different conversations that they've had were often transcribed, and you don't really get like a direct teaching from them, because they didn't want to put themselves above other people to say that they were warranted in their teaching. It was more like, I'm going to show you a mirror to what you're currently coming up against for you to realize that it's silly. And it's really interesting. The Eastern philosophy is quite fascinating. But anyway, a man once came to Rumi. His face pale, his voice shaking, his heart heavy with the kind of fear that no doctor could cure. He said, I'm afraid, not of pain, but of the end, of vanishing, of death. Rumi didn't answer immediately. He looked out towards the horizon where the sun was setting, and then he smiled. He said, see that sun? Looks like it's falling, doesn't it? But is it really ending, or just rising elsewhere? The man stayed silent, so Rumi continued. When I die, he said, don't think I'm missing this world. Don't cry for my body. Don't weep for my silence, because I'm not leaving. I'm arriving. The man looked confused. So Rumi stood and said softly, the grave is not the mouth of a monster. It is the doorway of the beloved. You will see my body lowered, but watch my soul rise, like the sun, like the moon, like a seed bursting into bloom. Rumi leaned in gently. You cry because you only see the coffin. You see the grave. But behind that veil is a garden you cannot imagine. He paused and then added with a whisper, have you ever planted a seed and not seen it rise? Why then do you doubt the soul of man? Have you ever seen a bucket lowered into a well and returned empty? Then why fear when the soul returns fuller than ever? The man, now trembling not with fear, but with something softer, stood quietly. And Rumi said, when I go, don't say goodbye. Say, he went home. The soul does not vanish. It removes its costume, steps into the place where there is no time, no fear, and no end. What looks like sunset is actually a dawn. What we call death is just the soul remembering where it came from. So don't fear the grave. It's not the end. It's the beginning of forever. Written by Rumi. Fascinating. Or rather, a conversation with Rumi. Absolutely fascinating. I think about this a fair bit. Jimmy Carr, my mate Jeremy, sent me a reel from Jimmy Carr. And he said, he goes, I thought I'd cheated life. I thought I'd won the game. Rich, successful, famous, good career, love what I do. And it just still felt empty. And he said he lost his religion at about 20, became an atheist, and said that nothing really mattered, so he's just going to get busy doing his thing. And then all of a sudden it dawned on him that the afterlife wasn't this grandiose, etherical thing that was beyond this existence. He goes, well, it was actually the kids that you bring into the world, because they're going to live a lot longer than you, and they will be the after of your life. And he said the lessons that you imbue to them and the lessons that you share with them and the ideas and who they become as a result of your parenting and all those sorts of things will live on long after you're gone, and then they will transfer to that to their kids, and then they'll transfer that to their kids, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so forth. And I thought, wow, that's a fucking great way of looking at it. And so I think a lot of people sit with the existential dread, or rather, I think a lot of people used to sit with the existential dread of what does this all fucking mean? I watched a very harrowing video yesterday in 1973 Yugoslavia. If you know anything about 44 to 73 in that region, then you know how fucking bad it was. And they asked these guys and women, and you can see the look on their faces were just soulless and empty. And you ask them the question, what's the value of life? And most of them said, I don't know. And some of them said, I've forgotten. And they were hardy, strong, resilient individuals to just keep pushing on. Especially when you consider that they didn't see a reason. They didn't see a purpose, and yet they did it anyway. And if you know your history, you'll know why that happened to them. Something that's not spoken about very commonly. And for good reason, because we want to keep that in the dark, because then it ruins the narrative of the other side. Which is with all battles, all wars. Every time somebody becomes victorious, they reshape history and then change it to something else. And when you think about like the burning of the library of the Great Library of Alexandria, several different factions, armies, and different individuals went there. And they're like, nah, fuck it, get rid of it. Don't want anybody figuring out this shit. It's fascinating to think about what we would have lost in those those scrolls. And even in terms of what's buried underneath the Vatican Library. That's fascinating. I think it's 2 miles. I don't remember the specific number, but it's miles of books, scrolls, papyrus, all these things. Fuck, your imagination goes wild to think about what could possibly be in there. Whether they have legitimate, original transcriptions of conversations with great figures in history, or there's 1,000 years we don't really have a lot to show for, and is it true, or has it been mistaken or rewritten or reshaped, or is there a 1,000-year period that did exist where nothing happened? And I don't know. Adds to the mystery of everything. And what was going on in the mid to late 9th century? What was happening? Let me fucking know. There's not a lot of material that you can find on it. Or if it is online, you can't really trust it. Most of the time, you got to kind of leverage off the experience of other people who are much smarter than you. And that's not always the best idea, because they could be in a position to not be telling the truth as well. We've seen that time and time again with people with different agendas and different sponsorships. So it's very confusing. I think it's a fascinating topic of conversation. I think you have to have more than 24 hours in a day to really get into it. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what's been orchestrated currently, is that you don't really have enough time to be able to look up and search for these things if you aren't completely self-sufficient in terms of finances. Because I get it. It's fucking hard. It's hard to try and manage kids and then try and manage a relationship and then work 40 hours for some cunt you don't like and some job that's not fulfilling and it barely gets you by, and fucking interest rates to keep going up and all that jazz. And I think that's why listening to things like Rumi and one other post I'll speak about is important, because it does a good job at dispelling fear, like specifically the Rumi passage. It does a good job at dispelling fear. And I found this quite interesting, actually. The Bible, do not fear is mentioned 365 times. It's a random number, or is it? Or is it very specific to each day of the year of the sun cycle, and the summer, autumn, winter, spring would all go through around this? But you have do not fear at least once, or rather once a day, every day, if you count the amount of times that it's mentioned. Pretty fucking interesting. Very interesting. The whole do not fear. Because a lot of people's actions are led through fear. Fear of missing out. Fear of what may happen if they lose. Sometimes fear of what will happen if you succeed. A lot of people do that. I don't think a lot of thought is given to the fact that a lot of people are terrified if they achieve their dreams, because then they're going to have to be different and they're going to have to change, and humans don't really like change all that much. And I was talking to Callum about this yesterday with the whole non-drinking thing, and a lot of people are fearful for the fact that they might have to separate themselves from their friend group because they're not partaking in the same things that their friend group is, and that they'll be alienated and ostracized and segregated, and that they will have to do the whole caterpillar to the butterfly transformation, I guess, because you're going to just find new people. You will find new people, but the fear clouds your judgment in a sense to convince you that you won't. So you continue to perpetuate the shit behavior so that you will maintain some sort of relationship that's not even really benefiting you anyway. But that it is often your perception that it's better than the alternative. And most of the time, that's a steaming pile of shit. It's not better than the alternative. And you know it deep in your soul that that's incorrect. Even like not speaking your piece on something, when you know you should say something and you just don't do it. Those little concessions that you make, they're dangerous. And I think it's all to do with fear. Fear of what the repercussions may be if I choose these certain actions. I think a lot of people live in fear most of the time. I don't want to get caught out, or I don't want to lose my job, or I'm scared that this might happen. Can't afford to think like that. You really can't. I like Hormozy's thing about if you can't physically bear it, which you will be able to, but if you can't physically bear it, then you're going to die. And if you're going to die, it's not going to be a fucking problem anymore. So at the very, very end of the worst that it could possibly get, where you die, then your problem's over. So is there a problem altogether? Probably not. It's a good way of looking at it. I really like that reframe. We'll close this up before my fucking phone dies. But the Culturist, great page on Instagram. Follow it. Recommend it heavily. Talks about a bunch of topics, but the ones that I've been saving are particularly interesting. 2,000 years ago, the world's most powerful man spent his nights alone writing his journal. He never meant to publish it, but it's now history's ultimate guide to living a virtuous life. And before I go into this, actually, there's 7 essential rules by Marcus Aurelius. There's a lot of critique of Stoicism. I've been one famously critiquing Stoicism as well. I don't agree with all of it. I don't think you should agree with all of anything. It should be an ability to have nuance and depth and at least segmentation of things that are good and things that are bad, and not necessarily championing one person and demonizing one person based on actions or inactions or anything like that. Just taking what's useful and going with it. And there's genuinely some useful stuff from most of the Stoics, but there's these AI renderings now of like Camus having a conversation with Seneca, or Nietzsche having a conversation with who was it? Plato. I think it was Plato. And they're using verses from the passages of their bodies of work, or rather like the ideology, like Camus' ideology is absurdism, that life is absurd and the only moral dilemma and questioning that you should have is, do I unalive myself or not? And what is worth me not doing it? It's a very interesting philosophical question, something you have to ask yourself. And it actually might bring a lot of light to your life, because you look at that question and you think, oh, that's a bit sticky. I don't really want to touch that one, because it's a very taboo topic. And only people who are mentally ill will think of those things. But that's not the case. And you genuinely consider it for a second. You go, why don't I just end this? Why don't I just stop waking up? Why don't I just get rid of all the pain that you're potentially going through? And in my interpretation, if you look at it correctly, you start to realize that there is a fuckload worth going on for. A fuckload worth going on for. And I think my mindset is shifting. It'll be interesting to watch these episodes back, if I ever do, in a year's time, based on having kids and the way that changes your perspective of everything. But just the smile of a child that you created, more than enough. More than enough. More than any fucking item I have ever bought, more than any fucking competition that I've ever won, more than any achievement, any accolade, any obstacle that I've overcome. All will pale in comparison. I guarantee it. I say it now, and I know it's true, because it will all pale in comparison. I do it for my goddaughter. You fucking watch her smile, and you're like, everything is sweet in the world. Don't have to worry about a single thing. And it's not even my kid. And I think when you get to that and you find something like that, and I mean, look, not everybody has to have kids. Obviously, it's a personal choice and a personal decision. I don't think you should be propagandized having them or not having them. I think it's a choice that you must make with your partner, whether it's a good decision for you and whether you're going to be a worthy parent or not. I think genuinely considering that is of your highest priority. I didn't want them at first. Initially, when my partner proposed that we should, and it was because I thought that I might be too selfish and that I wouldn't give the kids a good life because my goals and my things would come first, and then I could always justify it away with the fact that I'm providing for them and whatever. But I took a second look at it and I thought, no, what a worthy challenge to disintegrate that side of you, to do it with them and for them. Very important distinction there. And have that process be the thing that turns you around from the selfishness to selflessness. I'm excited for that part. I think that's the intention of which I'm going through with it. And again, a lot of the parents that I've spoken to that I admire in terms of their parental capabilities have said and have shown, demonstrated the same thing. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, Marcus Aurelius faced a tough time in power, ravaging plagues and endless barbarian wars, but his most lasting battle, it turned out, was the one against his own mind. Writing in his journal, the emperor distilled much of Stoic philosophy into actionable rules for life. Happiness, he knew, is not found in wealth or status, but virtue. His meditations explain how. Number 1, take action. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be, and be one. Fascinating construct, because if you look into the Gnostic interpretation of Jesus, it's the same thing. You don't contemplate or argue what the good thing is, what the correct thing is, or anything of that variety. You just get busy doing it. And I like Dana White's interpretation of this. He helped out Ben Askren recently, and he doesn't fucking brag about these things because he's a good dude. He just does it behind closed doors, and that's what you should be doing. I don't like talking about my charitable endeavors either. I don't need to post that on social media to feel validated for some fucking stupid reason. I've talked about it very briefly here, but I won't brag about it. I won't fucking raise it to public's attention. I don't need the validation from it. I do it because it's the right thing to do, not because I want the reward from doing it. And of course, some of the time it's a selfish endeavor. You want to feel good for helping people. But is that really selfish? Because you're still giving people an opportunity to get better. You're still lifting people up from the hole that they're in. You know, it's a moral question you have to answer for yourself. But I think touting it on the internet is probably more of the latter than it is the former. It's probably more of the virtue signaling. There was an article in the Daily Telegraph about Billy Slater. There's a famous rugby league player, one of the greatest of all time, probably about 5-10 years ago now. And he was on camp for Origin, and Queensland had come down to New South Wales, and he just went out by himself and fed homeless people. No crew, no camera, no nothing. And someone had snapped a photo of him and then recognized that it was him, and then obviously it got out to the news, and they asked him about it, and his sentiment was more or less the same thing. He's like, I don't want to talk about that. That's something I do for me personally and for those people that need it. Because I've got more than I need, and I'm going to give to those who need more than they have. And that's that. And I'm not going to at all shit on Jake Paul for donating fucking $500,000 to Ben Askren so he can get a lung transplant. But I think I agree with Dana's sentiment that he's not going to bring it up. He's like, I don't like talking about that sort of stuff because it's between me and the family. It's got nothing to do with the media. No one needs to know about it. I think that's a good way of thinking about it. But yeah, waste no time arguing what a good man should be. Just be one. And don't require the validation from the actions, because then you're doing it for the wrong reasons, or at least in my opinion. The essence of Stoicism isn't in debate or theory, but in practice. Live intentionally in the present. It takes a lot more to be virtuous than talk about it. What we do defines our character, not what we say. Live in the now. Number 2. The sole thing of which any man can be deprived is the present, since this is all he owns. There was a really good video this morning about Naval Ravikant. I shared it to my story. And he said the reason why it's called the present is because it's a gift. right now in any given moment, you can choose to do anything you want. You choose to be happy, choose to be sad, choose to be angry. You can choose to be elated, depraved, hedonic. You can choose whatever you want. You can choose to sit here in complete silence. You could choose to fucking doom scroll, do whatever you want. It's all a choice. But the present is a gift because you have that opportunity to do any of those things whenever you want. I'm getting closer to that. I'm still very far away, but I'm getting closer to that. Spending more time sitting outside in the sun, just staring at the fucking wall. I know it sounds very autistic, but it's quite good. I recommend you try it. Touch some grass. Put down fucking social media for a bit and just go and stare at the waves for a couple hours. One thing, I told this to Chris, first time I met him at the camp that I did recently. Great guy, by the way. Fucking legend. I said, Alan Watts spoke about the ocean never making an aesthetic mistake, ever. And yet it's always different, always changing. And if you really sit with that for a little bit, you look at a wave and you go, no, it's beautiful. It's different from the last one, and it'll be then again different from the next. But it's still aesthetically pleasing. There's something about it. And he likens this to humanity. I'm definitely not there yet. Anybody that says they are, aside from a couple of monks and mystics, is a fucking hypocrite. It's part of I think the modern man's human condition. We've been heavily propagandized to judge other people, and it's easy to do because that kind of has pink hair and it's weird. You know what I mean? I think you got to get with it to get out of it. I think you just be like, yeah, okay, they got pink hair, fuck, whatever, who cares? It's difficult. I imagine that most of the conversations about me that I'm unaware of when I'm walking down the street are quite funny. Like, oh, there's Shrek. There he goes. I don't know. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better at it. Trying to get better at being non-judgmental. Because really, every accusation is a confession. And if you turn the mirror in on yourself for the things that you're saying to other people, then you could pick a time and place where you're doing the exact same thing to yourself. And if you spoke to anybody else like the way that you speak to yourself, you wouldn't have many fucking friends. And that's a Dr. John D. Martini quote. He's like, where and when, to the same degree or less or more, have you done the exact same thing? You criticize somebody else and so on and so forth. And you kind of neutralize the emotional entanglement with the thing that somebody did to you that you thought was just so wrong and so out of place, but you'd done the exact same thing. I watched a video last night. It was talking about a guy driving through LA, and he looks out the window to see a homeless guy screaming at a stop sign whilst having an argument in their own head because their boss is a dickhead and they want to have the argument and win. And so they look at the guy screaming at the stop sign, lock their doors and become timid and quite fearful of the fact that he might come through and cause a ruckus or whatever. And then he drives past, forgets about the homeless guy and continues to yell at his own version of his own stop sign, which is his boss inside his head that he's having an argument with. It's just not as obvious. I thought that was particularly fascinating because you're doing the same thing. You're just condemning them for doing the same shit you're doing. You think you're all high and mighty because, yours is important. It's about a job, and I'm a fucking guy that has a job, and I wear a suit, and I'm very important. No, you're not. Shut the fuck up. You're the same as the homeless guy. It's identical. Anyway, the past and the future are illusions. All you truly possess is right now. Anxiety comes from clinging to what's gone and fearing what might come. Seneca famously grappled with this. The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. If you live immediately, and it's very difficult to do, you live presently, you don't really have any hang-ups for anything. If you live right now, you can't be depressed. If you live right now, you can't be anxious. Just be in the moment where you are currently. I know it's trite and contrived and everybody says it, you fucking be here now, namaste, blah, blah, blah. But genuinely, if you try and practice it, touch some grass, stare at the wall for a little bit, you get pretty good at it. It's so much fun. So much fun. Focus on what you can control. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. The dichotomy of control is the core of Stoicism. Everything is either in your power, thoughts, judgments, actions, or outside it. Suffering comes from confusing these. Do you have a problem? No? Then don't worry. Do you have a problem? Yes. Is there anything you can do about it? No. Okay, don't worry. Do you have a problem? Yes. Is there anything you can do about it? Yes. Do it. Is there more to do? No. Don't worry. Is there more to do? Yes. Do it. Is there more to do? No. Don't worry. Pretty good fucking philosophy, if you ask me. 4, control your response. You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. Things can't shape our decisions by themselves. Closely related to the idea that all events are fundamentally neutral, our judgments are what cause us suffering. Your mind adds meaning to everything that happens, and that's where your power lies. Number 5, take responsibility. You can also commit injustice by doing nothing. Pressing, very, very, how am I going to word this? Very interesting at a time like today, 2025. Inaction still a choice. The Stoics taught that not helping when you could is the same as causing actual harm. Back to point 1, virtue requires positive action. Number 6, guard your mind. The things that you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. Every mental habit shapes who you become, so guard your mind like the borders of an empire. Dwell on the true, the good, and the beautiful in life. A similar injunction exists in Christian thought. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, things are just, things are pure, things are lovely, things are of good rapport. If there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. And that's why you see brutalism architecture everywhere, because it's a communist weapon of destruction of the human soul. We're not going to go into that. Number 7, face mortality forthrightly. Think of yourself as dead. You've never lived. You have lived your life, sorry. Now take what's left and live it properly. The best tool for implementing all of the above, memento mori, pondering your mortality, as the emperor regularly did, will shake you. Remember how short life is, and you'll focus on what matters. I really like that. I've got a longer story about that, about this guy asking the devil for more time when he finally comes to tap him on the shoulder and say that he's dead. And he basically says, the cliff notes of it was that he asked for 1 more year because his son had just been born. He goes, please, 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 can I have 1 more year, 1 more year, 1 more year? And he goes, okay, I'll give you 1 more year. And then he gives him 1 more year. He comes back to the same bar where he's about to order. He goes, have your last drink. And he goes, please, 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 like, let me stay until he goes to school because I don't want him to be scared and all those sorts of things. And he goes, okay, I'll give you another year. He comes back to him. It's the same thing, more or less. And it goes through multiple decades and multiple different variations. It's actually a really cool. And at the end, he goes, all right, my wife's dead. My son's grown up. He's got grandkids and everything like that. You can take me now. And he says, I'll tell the big man upstairs what you did for me. And he goes, who do you think sent me? And that got me. That got me hard. I was reading that story and I was like, fuck. Something really worthwhile pondering. Really worthwhile. Really worthwhile. And I'm going to leave it at that so you think of it too. I implore you to think about it for the next couple of hours and see what you come up with. Don't try and wish away your time. Be grateful that you have more. Don't try and wish for next week. Next week is next week away. No point fucking wasting all that time in between now and then just to get to the end and realize that there was no end. This is just going to keep going. Anyway, always a pleasure. Never a chore. Clap. Done. Going to the fucking dentist.